Today, we're going to talk about why your awareness of having childhood trauma and potentially complex PTSD from that childhood trauma matters. And this is part two, and it's a video I did a couple weeks ago on a difficult childhood shapes our relationships, choices, and self worth, even at 60. Hi, I'm Kim, and I am trying my best and working hard to make my last decades my best decades. I'm 60. I lead a bit of an unconventional life in that I am a grad student in my last year of school to become a therapist, and I also work as a nanny. Let's continue the conversation about childhood trauma and what we go through as kids and how it impacts us. And I have some notes, so you're going to see me looking down so I can stay on track. Why this matters. So, understanding, examining your childhood matters because it can answer questions that you've maybe wondered about your whole life. In other words, there may be patterns that you have, ways of behaving, ways of coping, things that you haven't been able to do. It just may answer a lot of questions. For me, it connected a lot of dots when I figured out about 5 years ago now that my childhood, I'm the daughter of two alcoholics. My dad was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive to my mom and his wives, not to me, and emotionally abusive. And I've just kind of felt like my whole life, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I get it together? Now, I've been functioning. Thankfully, I'm someone that is a rule follower. I got good grades in school. I never really achieved success professionally because I couldn't finish anything. I dropped out of college initially. I had that pattern a lot of starting things and not being able to finish them. You can go back to my early videos where I started this channel a couple of years ago and would work on it for a while and then stop. It's just been that way with a lot of things, a lot of finding myself in situations where I'm just not, they're not good situations. When I was growing up, it just helped me reframe that maybe there's nothing wrong with me, but maybe this is all part of how I learned to cope and adapt as a kid. So, a couple of things here because I know people in my generation, again, I'm 60, we were kind of taught don't disrespect your parents, don't talk about anything that personal. Your parents did the best they could, blah, blah, blah. Yes, all of that is true. Well, not talking about anything personal, I disagree with that. But to think that by not examining your childhood that you are somehow escaping any of the potential negative impact it had on you, you're doing yourself a great disservice. So, which is what this video is about. Why is this worth looking at? You're not disrespecting your parents by looking at this. They did do the best they could, but that doesn't mean that it didn't impact you negatively and positively. Let's give credit where it's due. It's okay to talk about these kinds of things. It can answer questions about who you are, why you do what you do, how you got to where you are, and it can make you be able to move forward and potentially change things. So that's number one. Number two is it separates your identity from your survival strategies or your coping mechanisms. Some of the things that I adopted as a kid in order to stay safe at home, and by stay safe, I mean just be aware that the shoe could drop at any time, was hypervigilance, people pleasing, being emotionally numb, like not having any needs, not really comfortable emoting at all. And also when I did emote, it's like I couldn't stop. Like it was, once the switch came on, it was uncontrollable. unfinished goals. And I always have thought these were like negative things about myself, like poor character, poor personality flaws. And what I began to understand as I started learning about complex trauma, and living in a home that was unstable in many ways and with parents that were unstable. Understanding this helps me not pathologize it like there's something wrong with you, and helps me understand and be thankful for the ways I learned to cope, because it helped me as a kid. I had to have my antenna up all the time to know, how to navigate the situation that I found myself in. And it gave me some great characteristics, personal characteristics, but it also gave me some things that are harming me now. And understanding those helps me to be able to let those go. So, kind of keeping the things that were positive and that are helpful and healthy for me now that I understand it, and then also learning what things are not helpful and letting them go. The parts that help me survive and that I want to keep are my empathy. I have deep empathy. I have ability to see both sides of things. I have a very tender heart. I'm very good at problem solving and figuring out a way to get through something when it looks like the normal path, it won't work. I have a lot of grit and determination. Those are all good things, and I'm going to hang on to those. Some of the negative things that I learned as a child and adapted to are hyper independence. As I think about getting older, and right now, thankfully, I'm in good health, and I live on my own, and I still drive and I can, pretty much do anything I need to do on my own. But as I get older, I understand, hopefully it'll be a long ways away, that I will become less independent and will have to depend on others. Many times, this hyper independence is a negative thing. Like, I don't let people do things for me, I don't ask for help because that makes me vulnerable. And I think those can be kind of negative things in someone's life, in my life. People pleasing, I've talked about that a little bit in other videos. Saying yes to things and doing things to keep someone else happy at the expense of my own happiness. Now, that's not to say that, again, these aren't black and white, but of course you want to put other people first sometimes. But this kind of people pleasing is you are constantly willing and really almost not even aware that you are just doing whatever you need to do to keep everyone else happy, and you're not really taking care of yourself at all and asking yourself, what do I need, what do I want, what would be good for me in this situation. Having a lack of boundaries, had I not been raised in the home I was raised in, I do not think I would have married the man that I married. I say he is basically was my father, but didn't drink, emotionally unavailable, mean, vindictive, just not a nice person and not good to me. And that would have felt wrong had I not been so conditioned to not have boundaries and have like a level of respect that I expected other people to treat me with. So that I want to let go of. The inability to enjoy deep rest. It's a going, 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 going. Even at home by myself, I find it very hard to watch a show. Now, I can scroll on my phone for hours on end. That's more dissociation. Just allowing myself the ability and being okay with resting, just not accomplishing anything, not working off of a list. It's just this chronic need to, I won't say achieve, because I don't feel like I've achieved a ton, but just to constantly stay moving. I want to let that go. Being emotionally shut down. My kids have helped a lot with this, because with kids, you wear your heart on your sleeve. But I just tend to, sometimes when you feel so much and you can't take it anymore, you just kind of quit feeling. And I think there are times that I would like to be have my emotions a little bit more accessible and just be more aware of what I'm feeling and why. So those are some of the parts that I feel like are exhausting me and are not healthy for me. And then I talked about some of the parts that my childhood that are turned into positives. The number two was it separates our identity from our survival strategies and allows us to kind of cull through and pick what we want to keep and what we want to let go. Number three is it helps us have self compassion. This is such an interesting topic, and I'll try to do more videos on this. I think her name is Kristen Neff, that's done a lot of research on this. And prior to me understanding this, and I still struggle with it because it's not my default mode, but I berate myself. You didn't get that done. You didn't, you know, you didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. You look, you're 60 and you don't even own a home and you are back in school like everybody else is retiring and they've got money in their 401k. When I change that to being a more compassionate, like accepting and more positive voice to myself, that allows and creates the ability to change. The not having self compassion, which you would think would be the opposite, but it tends to not lead to change, positive change. It tends to keep helping someone stay in a negative cycle. So, understanding our childhood trauma can help us have self compassion, which then helps us grow in areas of life that we maybe would not grow in if we just kept getting down on ourselves and being upset with ourselves. So, those are a few of the things. Here's a little something I read. This was on blackartmatters.substack.com. I'll put a link below. I just want to give credit to, what I share on here that is not mine. This is a quote that really struck me. You're not too old. You're just beginning to live on your terms. Let them watch. You're living out loud. Understanding your childhood trauma and being willing to examine that. In the next video, I'm going to go over what are some things that you can do. I'm not a therapist. This is not advice. I'm studying to become a therapist. I'm not a doctor. So take all of this this is just my personal experience. Take all of it with a grain of salt. Consult your own mental health professional, doctor, etc. But in my last video in this series, I'm going to talk about what are some things, maybe if you've recognized that you did have suffer from childhood trauma. And there's another video. I'll try to link it here. I've never done this before, but you know how people do that, where I talk about the ACEs score, adverse childhood events, and you could take that. It's a very quick little sheet that you can score, and I've got a link in the description to see if you did have a traumatic childhood and like what some of the outcomes are of that, some of the difficulties with having a traumatic childhood. So on the last one, I'll try to put some things, if you can't afford therapy or don't have insurance for therapy, I've just tried to heal a lot on my own just by educating myself. So I'll put in the next video, go over some tactics and strategies and resources that might be helpful to you to start your journey to recovery from complex childhood trauma. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.